Have I ever found myself wondering how certain gardens flourish, seemingly immune to pests, while others appear locked in a constant battle for survival? The Amish, through generations of practice, have quietly attained mastery in natural pest control, employing straightforward, proven techniques. I can uncover their secrets through The Amish Way, 50 Natural Methods to Control Garden Pests. Let's consider the bug detective method. Have I observed a detective meticulously searching for clues? This mirrors the approach Amish gardeners take with pests. Armed with magnifying glasses, they examine plants at dawn, capitalizing on the insect's lethargy from the cool night air. "Catch 3 today or fight 30 next week," an Amish farmer shared with me, explaining how this uncomplicated strategy rescued his entire cabbage harvest. Their technique adheres to a methodical pattern. They don't inspect plants haphazardly, but follow specific routes, paying closer attention to plants known historically to attract more pests. This wisdom is passed down through generations, forming an efficient early detection network. The elegance of this method lies in its accessibility. It requires no specialized gear beyond a simple magnifying glass, involves no chemicals, just consistent observation that fosters a deeper connection with my garden. Weather plays a crucial role, influencing pest life cycles through temperature shifts. Amish communities utilize calendar systems that link weather phenomena with insect emergence patterns. An increase of merely 2 degrees in temperature can accelerate insect reproduction by 30%. The Amish understood this through careful observation, long before scientific confirmation. Numerous Amish families keep pest prediction journals, meticulously recording temperature, rainfall, humidity, and atmospheric pressure. These records gain value with each passing year. The oldest ones have been passed down through 5 generations. "Weather tells the bugs when to come to dinner," an Amish farmer clarified. "We just need to listen to what it's saying." As spring temperatures climb, they don't fret about every potential pest. Their journals guide them, indicating precisely which creatures warrant vigilance based on the observed warming trends. The fight against pests often begins beneath my feet in the soil itself. Amish gardeners employ the crush test to assess soil condition without needing any equipment. I take a handful of soil, squeeze it firmly, and then open my hand. Clay soil retains its ball shape, sandy soil disintegrates, while healthy loam crumbles agreeably, much like cake. Their method of counting earthworms is also effective. I dig up a cubic foot of soil and count the worms present. A higher worm count signifies fewer pest issues. 10 or more indicate soil capable of nurturing stronger, pest-resistant plants. Each cubic foot of healthy garden soil teams with up to 5,000 beneficial organisms, forming a living defense mechanism. Amish farmers view earthworms as their subterranean workforce. As one farmer put it, "They're always on the clock but never ask for overtime pay." If an Amish garden yields fewer than 5 worms per cubic foot, they prioritize soil improvement before planting. Nothing seems to frighten aphids quite like garlic. Amish communities have refined a powerful spray derived from common ingredients. The formula involves crushing a head of garlic and soaking it overnight in 2 cups of water. After straining, a tablespoon of mild soap is added. The sulfur compounds in garlic disrupt pest nervous systems without negatively impacting beneficial insects. Application timing is critical. Early morning or evening is best, when beneficial insects are less active and before sunlight degrades the active compounds. For optimal results, I apply it when pests are most active, but beneficial insects are resting, achieving targeted control without harming my garden allies. Clever storage techniques ensure this spray remains effective for weeks. Amish families store it in dark glass bottles kept in cool cellars, adding fresh garlic periodically to preserve its potency. When pests prove particularly persistent, the Amish turn up the heat. Their hot pepper defense utilizes capsaicin to establish boundaries that insects dare not cross. Cayenne and habanero peppers are favored due to their high capsaicin levels. Rather than merely chopping the peppers, they ferment them to enhance extraction. Peppers are blended with water, the mixture rests for 24 hours, and then it's strained before application. This spray functions by interfering with insect nervous systems. Upon encountering capsaicin, pests suffer intense irritation. Unlike mammals, insects cannot develop a tolerance and learn to avoid it entirely. It's crucial that I use appropriate protective gear, such as gloves and eye protection, when handling hot peppers to prevent skin and eye irritation. The Amish often cultivate these peppers specifically for pest control, sometimes in designated sections of their gardens. I can visualize guardians stationed at every garden entrance, repelling pests while welcoming helpful insects. This is the essence of the Amish living border system. They employ a three-tiered planting approach. Low-growing herbs constitute the initial barrier. Mid-height plants, like marigolds, form the second layer, and taller plants, such as sunflowers, finalize the border. Each tier targets distinct pests. The real magic unfolds as these borders mature. They deter harmful insects while simultaneously attracting beneficial predators like ladybugs and lacewings. "We're gardening for good bugs too," one farmer pointed out. "Give them a home at the edge and they'll pay rent by protecting what's inside." The varied plant aromas generated by these borders create a confusing olfactory landscape that hinders pests' ability to locate their preferred host plants. Sometimes, the most effective defense involves creating a diversion. The Amish trap crop strategy employs decoy plants to lure pests away from valuable crops, akin to setting up an enticing buffet far from the food I intend to harvest. The Blue Hubbard squash technique proves highly effective against cucumber beetles. By planting a few of these squash plants at the garden's perimeter, Amish gardeners successfully draw the beetles away from their primary cucumber crop. When executed correctly, trap crops can divert as much as 85% of targeted pests, performance comparable to chemical controls, but without the associated drawbacks. This system leverages the strong preferences many pests exhibit for particular plant varieties. By providing these favored plants as alternatives, gardeners can safeguard their main harvest. Once trap crops become heavily infested, they are carefully removed. Often, these plants and the pests they carry are fed to chickens, converting the problem into valuable eggs and fertilizer. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crisis disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. Recycling gains new significance in Amish communities, especially concerning garden protection. Those eggshells from breakfast? They transform into garden gold. Following breakfast, Amish families meticulously clean their eggshells, preventing potential salmonella contamination, bake them briefly for complete sterilization, and then crush them into sharp fragments. These are sprinkled in deliberate circles around vulnerable plants. Slugs and snails, those notorious slimy garden invaders, steadfastly refuse to traverse these barriers. Their soft bodies cannot withstand the microscopic sharp edges of the crushed shells. It's comparable to asking me to walk barefoot over a bed of thumbtacks. The Amish have perfected an application pattern that yields maximum protection using minimal material, focusing on creating narrow, yet complete circles around plants rather than scattering shells broadly. For greatest effectiveness, the eggshells should be crushed into varying sizes, establishing a multi-layered defensive perimeter. Plant aromas function like clandestine messages within the garden. Amish growers have mastered the technique of mixing these signals to thoroughly confuse pests. Instead of planting vegetables in neat, uniform rows, they intersperse aromatic companion plants that mask the scent of the target crops. A hungry cabbage moth might fly directly over a cabbage plant without identifying it if it's surrounded by strongly scented companions. The Three Sisters Guild beautifully illustrates this principle. Corn, beans, and squash, planted together. The corn offers structure, the beans fix nitrogen, and the squash leaves provide shade for the soil. However, there's an additional advantage. This combination significantly diminishes pest problems for all three crops. Planting radishes among squash plants has shown surprising effectiveness. The pungent radish aroma conceals the squash scent sought by cucumber beetles. Strategic companion planting fosters beneficial interactions between plants, enhancing the overall resilience of the garden. Commercial sticky traps can be costly and may contain dubious chemicals. Amish gardeners craft their own using pine resin gathered from local trees. The resin is carefully heated and blended with a small quantity of vegetable oil, resulting in a sticky substance that surpasses the performance of store-bought alternatives. They apply this mixture to colored boards, yellow to attract aphids, blue for thrips, and position them strategically throughout the garden. The height of these traps is crucial. The Amish place them at various levels, corresponding to the typical flying height of the target pests. Lower traps capture flea beetles, whereas higher traps intercept airborne aphids. These traps are so effective, it's jokingly said that some insects have been known to file missing relative reports after encountering an Amish garden. The statistics are impressive. A single well-placed sticky trap can capture hundreds of flying pests each week, thereby preventing thousands of eggs from being laid on crops. Occasionally, the most straightforward solutions prove the most effective. Amish gardeners utilize lightweight fabric coverings that float above crops, establishing a physical barrier against flying pests. Employing materials such as old bed sheets, sheer curtains, or purpose-woven fabric, they shield young plants during peak insect activity seasons. The fabric's lightness allows it to rest just above the plants, permitting growth while blocking insects from accessing the leaves. The tunnel system they have devised is particularly ingenious. By fashioning arch supports, they construct tunnels over rows, enabling easy access for weeding and harvesting without needing to remove the entire covering. Managing temperature becomes vital in hot conditions. The Amish lift one side in the morning for ventilation, resealing it by noon when most flying pests become active. This approach erects a physical obstacle preventing pests from reaching plants, yet still permits air, moisture, and light to pass through. Millions of years ago, minuscule aquatic organisms known as diatoms lived and died. Their fossilized remains now serve Amish gardeners in their battle against garden pests. This white powder, known as diatomaceous earth, possesses microscopic sharp edges that penetrate insect exoskeletons, leading to dehydration. To human touch, however, it feels like simple talcum powder. The Amish have refined a puff application method using basic hand dusters to target hidden plant areas where pests often conceal themselves. They apply it after the morning dew has evaporated, but before any rain arrives, maximizing its impact with minimal product waste. Even in regions with frequent rainfall, strategic timing between showers keeps gardens protected. Because the powder operates physically rather than chemically, pests cannot develop resistance. These microscopic fossils have been safeguarding plants longer than humans have cultivated them, demonstrating that sometimes the most ancient solutions remain the best. Even the common penny gains renewed utility in Amish gardens. Copper, zinc, and various other metals form barriers that certain pests are unwilling to cross. Strips of copper arranged around garden beds generate a bioelectric reaction that slugs and snails avoid. Their moist bodies conduct electricity, and contact with copper delivers a mild shock they rapidly learn to shun. Amish communities are adept at repurposing old materials for this task. Scraps of copper plumbing, aged zinc roofing, and other metal pieces become valuable garden protectors. A particularly intriguing aspect is the unforeseen benefit. These metals slowly leach trace minerals into the soil, strengthening the plants they protect and contributing to healthier crops over time. The science underpinning this method merges fundamental principles of electrical conductivity with pest biology to fashion an effective, chemical-free barrier. Newspaper serves purposes beyond just reading. It acts as a simple shield against climbing insects. Amish gardeners cut strips of newspaper, shape them into collars around young plants, and insert one end into the soil, effectively blocking pests like cutworms. The most convenient aspect is that these paper collars decompose naturally as the plants mature and toughen, requiring no cleanup. One Amish farmer reported saving his entire broccoli crop using this method after losing it the previous year. The contrast was stark. Protected plants flourished, while unprotected ones succumbed. Some might jest that these newspaper collars are the most widely read publications in the garden, attracting even insects to stop and check the headlines. Old cardboard functions similarly when used as sheet mulch, suppressing weeds and deterring soil pests. When darkness falls, a different type of garden work commences in Amish communities. Outfitted with basic flashlights, gardeners quietly seek out nocturnal pests that would otherwise remain undetected. The flashlight patrol unveils an entirely distinct garden ecosystem. Many destructive pests forage exclusively at night, remaining hidden during daylight. Tomato hornworms, seemingly invisible by day, practically fluoresce green under flashlight beams after dark. Different insects necessitate varied removal strategies. Slugs are hand-picked and dropped into soapy water, while larger beetles are knocked into collection jars. Some Amish gardeners prefer wearing gloves, while others cultivate nimble fingers for swift captures. A notable discovery from these nighttime excursions is that most garden pests are most vulnerable between 10 p.m. and midnight. Venturing out too early means missing them, while going too late means the damage is already done. This technique demands minimal equipment, yet offers maximal effectiveness against night-active pests. How I choose to water my garden significantly influences pest populations. This seemingly counterintuitive Amish strategy emphasizes when to water, rather than simply how much. Watering early in the morning, ensuring it's finished before 7 a.m., permits foliage to dry thoroughly during the day, thereby discouraging fungal problems that attract certain pests. Conversely, evening watering fosters damp overnight conditions favored by many destructive insects. Amish gardeners fashion clever drip irrigation systems from recycled items. Old coffee cans punctured with tiny holes deliver water directly to the soil, avoiding wetting the leaves. This targeted watering keeps moisture where plants need it, while simultaneously creating an environment unsuitable for moisture-loving pests. The timing also disrupts pest life cycles, as many insects lay eggs in moist soil at particular times. Watering on alternate days confuses their reproductive schedules while still fulfilling plant requirements. Precise water management cultivates a balanced environment where plants prosper and pests struggle. At times, the most potent pest control originates directly from the watering can. Amish gardeners utilize forceful water sprays to physically dislodge insect pests from plants. They have fashioned homemade pressure nozzles by drilling specifically sized holes in jar lids or adapting copper pipe fittings to generate the ideal spray force, potent enough to remove insects, yet gentle enough not to harm the plants. This method proves remarkably effective against aphids, spider mites, and small caterpillars, knocking them off plants before significant damage occurs. Once displaced to the ground, many are unable to relocate their host plants. Consistent application of this technique can diminish aphid populations by 60% without resorting to soap, oil, or pesticides. It is particularly useful on robust plants like roses, tomatoes, and fruit trees. Careful calibration of water pressure is essential to remove pests without damaging delicate plant tissues. Insects rely on light for navigation, and Amish gardeners leverage this knowledge to safeguard their crops. Merely altering when and where light is present creates powerful opportunities for pest management. Simple lantern designs lure night-flying moths and beetles away from garden areas. A white sheet hung vertically with a light source behind it, positioned about 50 feet from garden beds, effectively draws pests toward the light and away from crops. Creating dark zones using strategic shade cloth protects light-sensitive crops from pests that need bright conditions to feed. This works especially well for leafy greens during summer months. Moths are reportedly so drawn to these light traps that some joke they might pack tiny suitcases, believing they've received an invitation to a weekend retreat. Many Amish gardeners have noted correlations between moonlight phases and pest activity. During full moons, they implement extra protective measures for vulnerable plants, aware that certain pests become more active under increased nighttime illumination. The sun's energy transforms into a pest control asset through Amish heat treatment practices. By temporarily elevating soil temperature above 130 degrees, numerous pest eggs and larvae can be eradicated before planting even begins. Progressive Amish communities permitting limited plastic use clear sections of garden beds, moisten the soil thoroughly, and then cover it with clear plastic sheeting for 4 to 6 weeks during peak summer heat. Soil temperatures beneath the plastic soar, effectively killing harmful nematodes, fungi, and insect eggs. Old order communities attain comparable outcomes using traditional glass cold frames or natural fabric coverings. Although less efficient than plastic, these methods adhere to their commitment to natural materials. This technique demands precision. Temperatures must be high enough to eliminate harmful organisms while sparing beneficial ones. Excessive heat destroys all soil life, whereas insufficient heat fails to control pests. This method harnesses solar power to create conditions that effectively reset the soil ecosystem prior to planting. Winter transforms into an ally in the fight against garden pests when Amish farmers utilize freezing temperatures to interrupt pest cycles. Their fall soil turning method is brilliantly straightforward. In late autumn, garden beds receive a final tilling, which brings hibernating insects, eggs, and pupae to the surface. Exposure to harsh winter temperatures effectively kills them. This single action can curtail spring pest pressure by as much as 70%. Some Amish gardeners fashion microclimate traps, small accumulations of leaves or mulch placed away from valuable perennials. These piles attract overwintering insects seeking refuge. During the coldest winter days, these piles are dispersed thinly, exposing the sheltering pests to lethal temperatures. Nature itself provides the ideal pest control mechanism. Freezing weather acts as the gardener's helper without demanding additional resources. This strategy collaborates with natural seasonal rhythms to disrupt pest populations before they escalate into problems. Chickens evolve into precision pest control instruments in Amish communities via their mobile chicken tractor system. This is essentially a bottomless, movable coop granting birds access to designated garden areas. These lightweight structures are positioned strategically in garden sections, between planting cycles, or alongside mature crops resistant to scratching damage. The chickens eagerly consume insects, larvae, and weed seeds, simultaneously depositing nutrient-rich manure precisely where it's beneficial. Timing is paramount. 5 chickens can clear a 200-square-foot area of pests within just 2 days without harming crops, provided they are managed correctly. Amish farmers employ simple training methods to make the birds more garden-compatible. Chickens trained to respond to specific calls can be swiftly relocated if they begin causing damage to plants. This integrated approach yields multiple advantages: pest control, soil fertilization, and egg production, all derived from the same resource. Garden toads are regarded as valued team members in Amish communities. These natural pest controllers operate during the night shift while gardeners are asleep. Creating ideal habitats for frogs and toads throughout the garden involves simple stone pile structures. Amish gardeners stack flat rocks, leaving small gaps between them to form cool, damp retreats where amphibians can shelter during hot weather. Small water features situated nearby facilitate breeding and offer hydration during dry spells. The pest control capability of these small allies is remarkable. A single garden toad can devour up to 10,000 insects over a single growing season, working silently and demanding nothing in return except a cool resting spot. These amphibians offer such efficient pest control that some gardeners have humorously considered issuing them tiny security badges as the night shift supervisors of the garden. Many Amish children learn from an early age to recognize and safeguard these beneficial garden helpers. Not every insect is an adversary. The Amish establish targeted microhabitats within their gardens, specifically designed to attract predatory insects that prey on pest species. Instead of confining flowers solely to the garden borders, they intersperse companion flowers among the crop rows. These strategic plantings draw beneficial insects directly into areas prone to pests. Lacy white blossoms, like those of dill and Queen Anne's lace, attract tiny parasitic wasps known to destroy tomato hornworms and cabbage loopers. Insect highways are created throughout garden sections, enabling beneficial insects to move easily from one area to another. These connecting pathways ensure predatory insects can readily travel to where they are most needed. Season-long succession blooming strategies guarantee a continuous presence of predators from spring through fall. As one beneficial plant ceases flowering, another begins. Research substantiates what Amish gardeners have observed for generations. Gardens incorporating 8 or more flowering species among vegetables host 60% more beneficial insects precisely where they are required. Bats represent the Amish solution to night-flying pests such as mosquitoes, moths, and beetles. These silent predators can consume as many as 1,000 insects per hour per bat. Simple bat houses constructed from rough lumber provide ideal roosting spots. Mounted 15 to 20 feet high and oriented to face southeast, these houses absorb morning sunlight and attract bat colonies. Placement is crucial, near gardens but distanced from areas of evening human activity. Some gardeners even plant night-blooming flowers specifically to attract the insects that bats favor. Establishing suitable bat habitats delivers additional ecosystem benefits beyond pest control, including pollination and seed dispersal. The incorporation of bat habitats into garden planning showcases the holistic approach to ecosystem management employed within these communities. Not all garden defenders are visible to the unaided eye. Amish gardeners employ billions of beneficial nematodes and microorganisms to combat pests beneath the soil surface. These microscopic warriors assault pests in ways no human could, entering their bodies and releasing bacteria that inhibit reproduction or induce disease. Yet they remain entirely harmless to plants, humans, and beneficial insects. Amish communities have devised methods for cultivating these natural soil predators rather than relying on commercial purchases. Specific compost formulations and brewing techniques naturally boost beneficial populations. These beneficial organisms are so proficient, it's humorously suggested they could likely teach military strategy courses. Their stealth operations consistently overcome adversaries many times their own size. Application timing enhances their effectiveness. Beneficial nematodes perform best when soil temperatures reach 60-degree hours in the spring, allowing them to establish themselves before major pest emergence. These unseen defenders can penetrate and eliminate pests hiding underground, beyond the reach of other control methods. Grubs, wireworms, and root-feeding larvae stand no chance against this microscopic army. Standard compost nourishes plants, but Amish-style specialized compost actively deters pests while simultaneously feeding crops. The recipe incorporates specific ingredients chosen to maximize pest deterrence. Oak leaves, pine needles, and trimmings from specific herbs like tansy and rue yield compost that naturally discourages soil-dwelling pests. Careful temperature regulation during decomposition preserves the repellent compounds that would degrade in typical hot composting processes. Application timing adheres to lunar phases, a practice some might find questionable until observing the outcomes. Compost applied during the waning moon phase is incorporated into the soil more effectively due to increased earthworm activity during this period. The distinction between treated and untreated beds becomes apparent within weeks. Plants of the same variety grown with special compost exhibit significantly less beetle damage compared to those without it. The precise ratios constitute carefully guarded knowledge passed down through generations. Rocks transform into crop protectors through this ancient technique preserved by Amish communities. Finely ground rock minerals bolster plant resistance to pests and diseases. Carefully chosen stones, typically basalt, granite, and limestone, are pulverized into a powder finer than flour. This stone meal slowly releases essential minerals, enabling plants to absorb trace elements often deficient in modern soils. These slow-release elements fundamentally alter plant chemistry. Crops nurtured with stone meal develop thicker cell walls and produce compounds that naturally repel insects. Pests demonstrate a preference for avoiding these mineral-rich plants when alternative food sources are available. Application rates are adjusted based on crop type. Leafy crops receive light dustings, while fruiting plants benefit from more substantial amounts incorporated into the soil. This practice dates back millennia. Ancient agricultural texts from 1000 BCE document similar methods for fortifying plants against destructive pests. Long before biochar became a fashionable gardening term, Amish communities utilized charcoal to improve soil structure and mitigate pest problems. They produce garden charcoal from specific wood types: fruit woods for fruiting crops, maple for general garden use, and pine for plants preferring acidic conditions. Small, controlled burns yield charcoal, which is then crushed and integrated into soil areas prone to pests. The application technique is designed to maximize microbial activity. Fresh charcoal is inoculated with compost tea before being mixed into the soil, jump-starting beneficial microorganisms that outcompete pest larvae. These small black fragments might appear unassuming, but they function diligently beneath the soil surface, acting like tiny subterranean custodians, clearing out undesirable occupants. This method has profound historical roots. Indigenous cultures throughout North and South America employed charcoal enhancement for centuries prior to European contact. Modern research corroborates what the Amish discovered through observation. Charcoal-enhanced soils exhibit significantly fewer root pest issues compared to untreated soils. Low-growing plants serve as protective carpets in Amish gardens. In contrast to conventional mulch, which merely covers the soil, living mulch actively contributes to pest deterrence. Clover, creeping thyme, and sweet alyssum planted between crop rows establish ground cover that suppresses weed growth while also confusing pest insects. These living barriers physically obstruct crawling pests from reaching target crops and emit scents that mask the crop aromas insects use for navigation. Strategic selections involve pairing specific mulch plants with crops they can protect without creating excessive competition. Strawberry beds flourish with chamomile as a living mulch, while cabbage rows benefit from low-growing clover. Managing competition is the primary challenge. Amish gardeners regularly trim the living mulch to prevent it from depriving crops of essential nutrients. The results validate this method's effectiveness. Living mulch can reduce certain pest populations by 65% while concurrently improving soil health, preventing erosion, and adding nutrients with minimal upkeep. Bubbling barrels situated behind Amish garden sheds hold potent pest-fighting concoctions. Unlike standard compost, these actively fermenting materials seem to bolster plant defense mechanisms, an intriguing notion, although scientific backing for genuine immune-like responses in plants is still limited. Assorted plant materials undergo fermentation in covered containers until specific beneficial microorganisms proliferate. Monitoring temperature ensures the cultivation of helpful bacteria rather than harmful ones. Once readings reach 85 degrees to 95 degrees, the mixture is stirred and eventually incorporated into the garden soil. These fermented amendments appear to alter how plants react to pest pressure. Anecdotal evidence suggests treated plants might produce defensive compounds more readily when attacked. While the mechanisms differ from human immunity, this technique necessitates composting expertise. Novices should begin with simpler projects or collaborate with experienced gardeners until they acquire the necessary skills. The fermentation process generates complex, beneficial microbes that enrich the soil's biological profile, creating an environment where harmful organisms find it difficult to thrive. Milk jugs appearing in the garden might seem peculiar, but Amish communities have uncovered surprising pest management uses for this common dairy product. Diluted raw milk sprayed onto plant leaves helps control powdery mildew and repels certain insects due to its protein structures, which interfere with their feeding patterns. The recommended mixture, 1 part milk to 9 parts water, forms a thin protective film that many soft-bodied pests find impenetrable. Application timing enhances effectiveness. Milk treatments yield the best results when applied early in the morning every 7 to 10 days during periods of high pest activity. This technique was reportedly discovered by chance when milk spilled in a garden. Observant Amish gardeners noted that the affected plants remained healthier than adjacent ones, prompting experimentation that refined the method. Plants also derive benefits from the milk's calcium content and micronutrients, which strengthen cell walls and boost overall resilience against stress and pest pressure. Garden herbs transform into potent pest control potions under the skilled hands of Amish gardeners. Their herbal spray recipes result from generations of observation and refinement. Strongly scented herbs such as wormwood, tansy, and rue are steeped in hot water overnight, yielding intense infusions that confuse and repel insects. Proper extraction techniques preserve volatile compounds that would dissipate through boiling or brief steeping. What renders these infusions particularly effective is the practice of combining herbs for synergistic effects. For instance, a nettle comfrey spray deters cucumber beetles while simultaneously strengthening plant tissues against damage. A rue-garlic combination confuses cabbage moths by overwhelming their sensory capabilities. The process remains simple yet precise. Fresh herbs are harvested before flowering when oil concentrations are highest, and steeped in covered containers shielded from direct sunlight to protect delicate compounds. Many plants traditionally dismissed as weeds are specifically cultivated by Amish gardeners for their protective qualities when utilized in these specialized infusions. The sharp aroma of vinegar, which causes me to wrinkle my nose, produces a similar reaction in garden pests. Amish communities have honed specific vinegar applications that deter pests without damaging plants. Apple cider vinegar, the favored variety, is diluted with 5 parts water prior to application. This ratio achieves pest deterrence without scorching sensitive plant tissues. Some progressive Amish communities incorporate a drop of soap to aid the mixture's adhesion to plant surfaces. Strategic barrier placements establish vinegar boundaries around vulnerable crops. Strips of cloth soaked in the diluted vinegar and laid around garden beds deter crawling pests without direct plant contact. This method originated with an elderly Amish gardener who observed pests avoiding areas where pickling vinegar had accidentally spilled. Years of refinement transformed this chance observation into a dependable technique. The acidic nature of vinegar creates an environment many soft-bodied pests find intolerable, though most plants tolerate it well when properly diluted. Progressive Amish communities that permit the use of limited off-farm materials have adopted hydrogen peroxide as a garden ally. Traditional groups achieve similar effects using fermented plant extracts. This technique involves using carefully diluted household hydrogen peroxide, typically 1 part 3% peroxide to 6 parts water, as a contact killer for fungal spores and insect eggs. When sprayed on plants, it releases oxygen molecules that eradicate harmful microorganisms while generally sparing beneficial ones. Application aims to reach hidden pests through a fine mist sprayer capable of penetrating the undersides of leaves and stem joints where problems frequently originate. The minuscule bubbles generated as hydrogen peroxide decomposes could tell quite a tale. They're on a search and destroy mission worthy of an action movie hero. Caution is paramount with this method, as overuse or incorrect dilution can harm beneficial soil microbes and plant roots. Amish gardeners restrict applications to targeted problem areas rather than treating the entire garden. Cooking oils from Amish kitchens gain second lives as potent pest control agents in their gardens. These natural oil emulsions work by suffocating insects rather than poisoning them, leaving behind no harmful residues. Crafting the ideal spray necessitates proper emulsification, as oil and water don't mix readily. Amish gardeners address this by adding small quantities of mild soap, which acts as a binding agent. This process creates microscopic oil droplets suspended in water that effectively coat insect bodies upon spraying. Targeted specific application minimizes any negative impact on beneficial insects. Oil sprays are directed precisely where pests congregate: leaf undersides, stem joints, and bud clusters, rather than being broadcast widely throughout the garden. The science underlying this method is quite fascinating. The sprays obstruct insect-breathing pores, spiracles, while leaving plants unharmed. Pests literally suffocate, while plant tissues continue normal respiration through distinct cellular mechanisms. This approach provides immediate control of existing pests, while remaining entirely non-toxic to humans, pets, and beneficial garden organisms. The pungent fragrance of onion family plants establishes invisible barriers throughout Amish gardens. Strategic placement of garlic, onions, chives, and leeks, among other crops, effectively confuses and deters numerous pest species. This specific spacing pattern maximizes repellent effects without hindering crop growth. For example, single garlic plants positioned every 3 feet along carrot rows help prevent carrot flies from locating their target. Chives planted between every 4th tomato plant significantly reduce hornworm damage. Certain pests exhibit remarkable sensitivity to allium compounds. Aphids, cabbage loopers, and Japanese beetles tend to avoid these strongly scented plants altogether. Even subterranean pests like nematodes show reduced numbers near allium roots. The success of this method against carrot flies often surprises first-time users. These persistent pests can devastate entire carrot crops, yet simple garlic plantings can decrease damage by up to 70%. The sulfur compounds released by allium plants interfere with insects' olfactory senses, hindering their ability to locate preferred host plants and effectively sowing confusion among the pest population. Mint's characteristically aggressive growth habit becomes a strategic asset in Amish pest management. These aromatic plants emit potent compounds that many garden pests find intolerable. The sunken pot technique prevents mint from overtaking the garden while still harnessing its protective properties. Clay pots with drainage holes are buried up to their rims, filled with soil, and then planted with mint. The pot contains the spreading roots, while allowing the aromatic oils to permeate the surrounding air. Mint stations positioned near garden entry points establish defensive zones where pests often make their initial appearance. Different mint varieties serve distinct purposes. Peppermint deters ants and cabbage moths, while spearmint repels flea beetles and spider mites. The specificity offered by different mint varieties provides remarkable targeted protection. Research confirms what Amish gardeners discovered through observation. Each type of mint affects different pest species with surprising precision. When placed strategically, mint functions as nature's security system, standing guard at garden perimeters and creating protective zones that many pests refuse to enter. Scraps from cedar fences find renewed purpose in Amish gardens as natural pest repellents. Various wood materials offer lasting protection against different types of pests without resorting to chemical treatments. Different woods provide unique advantages. Cedar oils naturally repel moths, beetles, and cockroaches. Pine resin deters slugs and snails. Oak tannins help reduce fungal issues that attract certain pests. Application methods are designed to preserve these repellent compounds. Wood chips are refreshed annually through light sanding to expose fresh surfaces that release protective oils. Wooden plant markers crafted from cedar naturally protect the plants they identify. These woods contain such an abundance of protective compounds that, if trees could communicate, they might well be conducting seminars on natural pest defense strategies. This technique originated in Amish food storage areas before being adapted for garden use. Pantry shelves lined with cedar protected stored grains from weevils and moths, inspiring similar applications outdoors. An uncommon tradition persists in some Amish communities: the controlled exposure of plants to specific types of smoke to deter pests and discourage disease. Constructing a simple smoke generator requires minimal materials, typically a metal container with ventilation holes, to hold smoldering materials like specific woods, dried herbs, or corn cobs chosen for their protective attributes. The gentle smoke is allowed to drift through garden rows during calm evening hours. Certain plants demonstrate remarkable benefits from this technique. Fruit trees and grapevines treated with applewood smoke tend to experience fewer insect problems. Tomatoes exposed to smoke derived from dried sage leaves show increased resistance to fungal issues that commonly attract pests. This method boasts ancient origins, spanning continents and cultures. Indigenous communities worldwide have employed controlled smoke exposure for centuries to safeguard crops and stored foods. The smoke particles coat plant surfaces with compounds that create physical and chemical barriers against certain pests and pathogens, while potentially stimulating the plant's innate defense mechanisms. Morning coffee performs double duty in Amish households that permit this modern beverage. Used coffee grounds become valuable garden protectors, offering multiple pest-deterring properties. The combination of nitrogen and caffeine creates a natural barrier that slugs and snails are reluctant to cross. These pest-sensitive bodies react strongly to both the gritty texture and the chemical compounds present in coffee grounds. Strategic application around vulnerable plants forms protective circles that most slugs will not penetrate. Specific application patterns maximize effectiveness while minimizing the amount of grounds needed. Thin, continuous lines around plants prove more effective than scattered grounds. Refreshing the barrier after rain ensures continued protection. Coffee grounds provide an unexpected benefit beyond pest control. They attract earthworms, which improve soil structure, ultimately leading to healthier plants that naturally resist pest pressure. The caffeine content in coffee grounds disrupts the neurological systems of many garden pests, creating an effective deterrent that also contributes valuable organic matter to the soil. Timing holds immense importance in pest management. Amish communities have devised a sophisticated system for scheduling plantings, specifically to avoid periods of peak pest pressure. Rather than adhering strictly to calendar dates, they utilize mathematical formulas informed by natural indicators, such as when certain wild plants bloom, when specific bird species arrive, or when soil temperatures reach particular thresholds. These phenological markers offer more precise timing than calendar dates alone. The wisdom resides in observation rather than rote memorization. By closely watching nature's rhythms, Amish gardeners discern the optimal moments to plant, thereby circumventing major pest cycles. Shifting planting times by just 7 to 10 days can dramatically lessen pest pressure on vulnerable crops. Their timing is reportedly so accurate that some gardeners humorously claim to keep appointment books for different insects, knowing precisely when to anticipate their arrival and planning accordingly. For instance, bean beetles typically emerge when soil temperatures consistently reach 65 degrees for 4 consecutive days. Planting immediately before this threshold, or waiting 10 days after, means the beans establish themselves either before the beetles emerge or after their peak feeding period has passed. The simple act of harvesting holds surprising connections to pest management within Amish communities. Gathering crops at specific times significantly reduces the number of insect hitchhikers and prevents the transfer of pests between the garden and storage areas. Harvesting at dawn proves particularly effective. Vegetables collected before sunrise carry approximately 40% fewer pest insects compared to those harvested midday. Most garden pests remain sluggish in the cool morning air, making them less likely to adhere to harvested produce. Specific handling protocols further prevent pest transfer. Crops are inspected immediately upon harvesting, with any affected portion separated before bringing the produce indoors. Harvest containers are never placed directly on the ground, preventing soil-dwelling pests from climbing aboard. This timing strategy extends pest protection well beyond the garden itself. Morning harvested crops experience markedly fewer pest issues during storage, leading to reduced waste. The practice of early morning harvesting aligns with natural cycles when pest activity is minimized, creating a simple yet effective barrier against pest transfer from field to storage. Moonlight influences more than just the tides. Some Amish communities adhere to lunar calendars for pest management, a practice that varies considerably between settlements based on local traditions. Observations suggest potential links between insect behavior and lunar phases. For example, many destructive moths seem to exhibit increased egg-laying activity during full moons, while reducing activity during new moons. By monitoring these patterns, gardeners can adjust their protective strategies accordingly. Different gardening activities are aligned with specific moon phases in this traditional approach. Harvesting during waning moons is thought to reduce storage pest problems, while soil treatments applied during new moons are believed to penetrate deeper, potentially targeting soil-dwelling pests more effectively. Although mainstream science largely views lunar gardening as speculative, some preliminary studies have begun to investigate what these communities have observed over generations. Their experience hints at possible connections between lunar cycles and subtle shifts in pest behavior, even though the precise mechanisms remain unclear. This approach embodies multi-generational wisdom that acknowledges subtle environmental influences often disregarded in modern agricultural practices. The timing of fall garden cleanup distinguishes between future pest problems and effective pest prevention in Amish communities. Their balanced approach disrupts pest cycles while simultaneously supporting beneficial insects. The precise schedule holds significant importance. Certain crops, especially those known to harbor persistent pests, are removed immediately after harvest. Others, however, are left standing through early frost to provide resources for beneficial insects and birds that consume remaining pests and their eggs. Removal techniques vary depending on the plant type. Crops afflicted with fungal issues or pest eggs are completely removed and subjected to hot composting, whereas healthy stalks and stems with hollow centers are left intact to serve as winter shelters for beneficial insects. Their cleanup schedule is reportedly so effective at breaking pest cycles that neighboring farmers can often identify which gardens adhere to Amish practices simply by observing the pest populations the following spring. This balanced strategy controls pests while fostering garden ecology by selectively removing problematic plants but preserving beneficial habitats, creating a year-round pest management system. Patience transforms into a potent pest management tool within the Amish garden philosophy. Their counterintuitive late planting technique significantly reduces pest pressure without relying on sprays or barriers. Instead of rushing to plant at the earliest feasible date, Amish gardeners frequently wait until specific indicator weeds emerge. When certain weeds reach particular heights, they signal optimal planting conditions for specific crops, conditions that often coincide with the decline of early-season pest populations. This method depends on natural indicators rather than fixed calendar dates. By observing the emergence and flowering patterns of native plants, they precisely time their plantings to sidestep major pest cycles. The outcomes validate this approach. Patiently delayed plantings often yield healthier plants possessing natural pest resistance. The slight reduction in the overall growing season length is more than offset by diminished pest damage. This strategy highlights the value of observational wisdom, recognizing that nature frequently provides clear signals regarding optimal timing, provided I learn to interpret them correctly. Garden pests pay no heed to property boundaries. Amish communities leverage this reality by coordinating pest management initiatives across multiple farms and gardens. Regular community gatherings feature updates on pest sightings, establishing an early warning network that benefits all members. When one farmer detects tomato hornworms, neighbors understand the need to inspect their own plants promptly. Communication methods for alerting neighbors about outbreaks differ among communities. Some utilize designated messengers, while others rely on routine gatherings to disseminate information. The pest wave prediction model, developed through this cooperative effort, assists everyone in preparing for seasonal challenges. By tracking pest movements over broader areas, they can anticipate problems before they manifest. Coordinated management efforts can decrease pest pressure by as much as 80% across entire communities. When everyone simultaneously removes pest-harboring debris or strategically plants trapped crops, the collective impact is amplified. This collaborative approach reflects a fundamental community value, recognizing the profound interconnectedness of garden ecosystems across adjacent properties. Garden mapping attains new levels of sophistication in Amish communities, where multi-year, multi-family crop rotation systems prevent pest buildup across entire neighborhoods. Documentation practices range from simple hand-drawn maps to intricate rotation books passed down through generations. These records track not only what was planted where, but also which pest challenges were encountered in each specific location. Rather than rotating individual crops, their focus is on plant families. All nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, etc., are moved together through the rotation sequence, preventing pests that target this particular family from establishing enduring populations. This strategy confuses pests over larger areas while concurrently enhancing soil health. When an entire community engages in coordinated rotation, pests must travel significantly farther to locate suitable host plants. The effectiveness of this method becomes evident when comparing pest levels in rotating versus non-rotating gardens. Communities practicing this method report up to 75% fewer specialized pests compared to isolated gardens with limited rotation. Amish seed saving prioritizes pest resistance, not just flavor or yield. Plants that naturally withstand pest pressure without intervention become the progenitors of the following year's crops. Selection commences during the growing season. Plants demonstrating natural resistance to common pests are marked for seed saving, while those necessitating intervention are utilized for food but excluded from reproduction. Breeding techniques systematically strengthen these natural resistances over generations. Cross-pollination between resistant plants results in increasingly robust varieties uniquely adapted to local pest challenges. These seeds have developed such remarkable pest resistance that some varieties seemingly give insects the cold shoulder, akin to vigilant bouncers at an exclusive plant club denying entry to pests. Seed-saving protocols emphasize meticulous labeling and storage to preserve the integrity of these specialized varieties. Seeds harvested from resistant plants receive special markings to differentiate them from general seed stock. Through this selective process, one Amish family successfully developed an heirloom tomato variety resistant to hornworms over a period of 15 years. What started as a single plant repelling hornworms evolved into an entire strain possessing this valuable trait. The edge of the garden holds the key to pest management for many Amish growers. They intentionally maintain uncultivated spaces surrounding their main gardens, not as a result of neglect, but as a demonstration of strategic wisdom. These wild margins function as year-round habitats for beneficial insects that help control pests. Instead of clearing every available inch for cultivation, they preserve natural areas where predatory insects can successfully overwinter and reproduce. Plant selections within these border areas are chosen to maximize habitat value. Native flowering plants supply nectar for adult beneficial insects, while dense grasses and shrubs provide essential winter protection. These perimeter ecosystems evolve into biodiversity reservoirs. Research confirms that gardens featuring established wild margins host up to 65% more natural pest predators migrating in from these protected zones. The uncultivated margins serve as both refuge and recruitment zones for beneficial organisms that naturally suppress pest populations throughout the entire growing season. At the core of Amish pest management rests a profound perspective regarding garden damage. Their balance philosophy acknowledges that a completely pest-free garden is neither natural nor essential. This approach commences with careful observation rather than immediate intervention. Minor pest presence often resolves itself naturally as predator populations increase in response. Amish gardeners pose the question, is this damage genuinely threatening the harvest, rather than, is this plant absolutely perfect? For many Amish families, this sense of balance intertwines with deeper spiritual dimensions. Working with nature, rather than against it, reflects their understanding of humanity's role as stewards, not controllers, of creation. They perceive themselves as participants within natural systems, not masters dominating them. The wisdom inherent in this approach becomes increasingly apparent over successive seasons. Gardens managed according to this balanced philosophy exhibit growing resilience each year as beneficial insect populations become established and soil health steadily improves. This perspective fosters a more sustainable relationship with the garden ecosystem, minimizing the need for interventions while still ensuring productive harvests. Ultimately, the goal isn't merely to outsmart the bugs, it's about comprehending the garden's intricate web of life. The Amish demonstrate that nature possesses its own inherent rhythm, and when I align my efforts with it, rather than struggling against it, everything tends to thrive. Perhaps that is the genuine secret.